we don't have to go so super fast just to be able to get there. But if we're talking about sending people, then it's gonna probably take either some leaps in technology or a generational ship at this point, right? Where
Right.
we send people who are going to have children, and their
Right.
children or their children's children will be the people who actually arrive. And
Yeah.
even under these circumstances, there's still a lot of stuff we have to figure out. And some of the stuff we have been figuring out recently.
Welcome to another episode of the Bloomburg Democrat. I am Sally Taylor. This is my sharpest tack's younger brother, John Daniels. And we are here to talk about space and space exploration and whether or not we should be doing it.
Yeah.
So, John, this is a
Mm,
topic that you brought up for us
yep.
recently. What's your take on it?
So I like space. I like space a lot. I like Star Trek. I like Star Wars. I like everything about space. I like to look at the planets. Got a telescope, binoculars. I like to, see meteor showers. I like to see comets. And every now and then I'm looking at news on the internet. I see stuff about space and oh, that's interesting. We've got a probe that's approaching the sun, going super fast, fastest thing humans ever made. It's all interesting stuff. But sometimes then there's comments in these news articles, and I look at the comments because I wonder what people are thinking. And people are like, why are we doing this? We're wasting time, we're wasting money, blah, 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 blah. And I think I disagree. Like, why would you think this is a waste of time? It's super interesting. And isn't that enough reason to do anything? Right? So so that's kind of why I
Yes.
thought this is an interesting topic because it is a little bit controversial. Like some people think that going to the moon was a hoax and that we never really went to the moon. And they have lots of reasons that seem logical to them and that they seem to think make sense. But I think we went because as you analyze these theories, and if you know anything really about photography, then you kind of start to understand that yeah, no, it's okay that you can't see the stars in the pictures because of the contrast differences. You're looking at something that's really bright in the foreground, and so the background gets kind of, you know,
Darkened out.
yeah, darkened out.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that we can talk about and hopefully, kind of shed some light on why it's not such a bad idea.
Well, it's interesting too. A lot of people question why have we not gone back to the moon
Hmm.
since the 60s, early 70s, and a lot of it seems to be that we've lost the political will to be there,
Yes, yes. I think
and
that's
it's
a
a big
large part of it.
endeavor.
Yeah,
Yeah, that takes essentially a nation, or maybe in the case now, a really wealthy individual
yeah,
to do what it would take in order to explore further.
yeah.
Or even go back to the moon. I heard NASA is claiming recently even that they've lost the technology for getting to the moon.
Hmm.
That that seems a little unusual or odd, but
I wonder if they just lost some people who knew what was going on as far as going to the moon was involved, and so they don't quite have the know-how that they used to
I
have.
think it's got to be something similar to that. But I think they've also lost a lot of the documentation. Maybe I'm not
Maybe some
sure.
documentation, yeah, like a lot of stuff was printed out, and so maybe they've
Yeah,
lost those documents.
yeah,
Maybe a lot of the machines that, the computers and things have definitely been thrown out, and there
right.
are people online who have acquired parts and large computers and have restored them and these types of things. So certainly it's not beyond the realm of reality that they have lost a good deal of the stuff that they used to get to the moon. But
Right.
I don't think it's something that we can't more or less easily reacquire at this point.
Well, I agree because the cell phones that we have now have more computing power than the
Yeah.
computers that were used to get us to the moon,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
even into orbit early on. So I told you before we started this discussion, or when you chose the topic, that I'm generally a pro girl. I'm pro space exploration.
Yeah.
We as
That's great.
human beings have always explored, right?
Yeah.
We always
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
We explore new
The planet.
continents,
Yeah.
yes, the oceans.
Yeah.
We haven't even explored all of the ocean yet, to be
Yeah.
honest, because it's a rather difficult environment to get into as well
Yeah. Yeah.
at
Yeah.
its deepest levels.
Lots of pressure
Uh,
involved.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And, we have done our attempts at space. We certainly are
Yeah.
well established within our orbital range,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And the
We've
Voyager
dirtied it up just like we
2,
have everywhere else.
right? Yeah, it's pretty
Right?
trashy right now, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
We have
Voyager 2 is
sufficiently
way out in,
habitated,
yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
in intergalactic space at this point. Yes.
Right. Yes, it's
Yeah.
left the solar system and still
Yeah.
pings periodically to
Yeah.
let us know where it is and what's going on.
Yeah. And it was even
So,
broken, and then we fixed it, and it's still
right.
working. Yeah.
Yes. To me, Voyager is an amazing, amazing thing.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, it, Even though it's unmanned, the fact that it's still working after, I think it was 1977 or so. I may have been 9 years
Somewhere
old.
around there. Somewhere around
Yeah.
there.
When that thing took off, and it's still going and still has enough operational capacity
Yeah.
to send back information.
Yeah.
I think that information takes something like 29 hours now
It's somewhere around there. Yeah.
to get back to us.
Like I'm not big on remembering dates or certain amounts of time that things require, but
Yeah.
that's about right.
Right. Well, I can hold it for short periods of time. And if
Yes.
so, if I've heard it recently, it'll stick until, a
Yeah,
few
the
weeks
next
later.
week.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. That's
Um,
how I am.
it's still it's fascinating to think that it's gotten so far away that just the retrieval of information from it now
Yeah.
takes a certain amount of time. I mean, it's not
Yes.
instantaneous.
A considerable amount of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, that's our challenges. It's
Yeah.
less a matter of will, because I think there are individuals with will,
Hmm.
than it is a matter of, do we have the technology and the capacity to deal with the vast distances and the amount of time that it would currently take for us to get
Hmm.
anywhere beyond our own solar system.
Right. There's so many things we can talk about here. Like there's intergalactic space travel where we want to go to other stars, interstellar space travel
Right.
for what I guess would be a more immediate goal there. Intergalactic meaning between galaxies, and
Right.
interstellar just between stars. And so yes, so first I think we're going to try to aim for some interstellar space travel. Um, and so there are some good candidates. So Trappist, for example, is not so far away, if I remember correctly. And there are several planets that are very interesting, Earth-sized planets and things like that. And then, of course, like Proxima Centauri, if I am
Right.
remembering
I think
correctly,
that's maybe the
is
closest
the
one.
closest,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And so we don't have to go so super fast just to be able to get there. But if we're talking about sending people, then it's gonna probably take either some leaps in technology or a generational ship at this point, right? Where
Right.
we send people who are going to have children, and their
Right.
children or their children's children will be the people who actually arrive. And
Yeah.
even under these circumstances, there's still a lot of stuff we have to figure out. And some of the stuff we have been figuring out recently. Recently, we found this bacteria. Maybe it's not actually so recent we found the bacteria, but I read it recently in the news that about this bacteria. It's like I remember that the tagline in the news article was Conan the Bacterium, because this bacteria is so strong that
But it
it can
survives
withstand a
space.
thousand times the radiation that a human can survive. And
Oh,
so
wow.
that's an extremely large amount of radiation because we're not like
Right.
super weak ourselves. We can kind of handle stuff. And so that would be if we can figure out how, and we are figuring out how. I believe it has to do with what was it? Was it boron and there's a couple of minerals that are interacting. I think it was three minerals interacting in kind of unison that's making it so this bacteria can survive. And so if we can utilize these three minerals within our own bodies, we can then possibly withstand thousands of times the radiation that we can currently withstand. And so
Right.
that's one of the main goals. I'm sorry, one of the main not goals, but the one of the
Problems.
main problems that we have
Yeah.
with traveling through space is that the radiation, interstellar radiation, once we get away from the planet Earth and
Hmm.
its magnetic field, which is protecting us from all of the radiation from the
Right.
sun, and from cosmic radiation as well from deep space, then we start to have our DNA attacked by all this radiation and we start
Right.
dying, basically.
Breaking apart. Yes.
Yeah,
Well, radiation is a big problem. The lack of gravity is a
right,
big problem for the human
right.
body. Yeah,
Yes,
astronauts come back very altered just
yep,
from being outside of gravity.
yep. Loss of bone
Um,
mass.
mhm.
Yeah, our muscle mass is decreased um, through lack of gravity. And so these are
Right.
things, this is why they're constantly exercising. They have like a certain number of hours per day that they have to run on a treadmill or whatever. Or
Right.
they're strapped to it and it's kind of pulling them down to it. So yes, there's things that we currently do to kind of mitigate the effects of space, but there's a
Hmm.
lot more that we really need to be able to do before we can travel amongst the stars.
Right. So you're listing all of the reasons why I
Why we
think
shouldn't do it,
we have
right?
not why, well, not why we shouldn't do it, but why
Yeah.
we haven't done it yet for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Right? We've got
Yeah.
so many of these problems that we still have to solve. And I
Yeah.
do think humans are very intelligent and we can
Mhm.
as a group, we're even more intelligent. I sometimes sometimes
Yes.
as a
Yes.
group of educated, physicists and
Right.
um, engineers and that sort of thing, we
Right.
can problem solve.
Exactly.
But there are still some fairly what feel like insurmountable problems. So that's why
Mhm.
I have been saying for some time now that we're not going to get anywhere through combustion engines.
Right.
Where fire is not going to get us to where we want to
No.
go.
No. No.
It
No.
might
Not.
get us
Not.
to Mars,
Certainly not
but
with like fossil fuels. Of course
no,
not.
no,
Things like hydrogen, for example. No, probably still not. Although it's at least a little bit better for our planet to be burning hydrogen in the atmosphere as opposed to other things. But still, we need to figure out something better than kerosene, which is kind of, jet
right,
fuel is kerosene
right,
and rocket
right,
fuel, I guess, is maybe not kerosene, but it's still it's liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen, which is
right. It's a
okay.
fossil fuel
Yeah, there are other things as
too.
well.
Yeah,
We need to figure out something better, that's for sure.
yeah.
And so one thing that people have dreamed up, and which I think is a great idea, is a space elevator, right? So
How
if we
far is that
can
going to get you though?
get you to outside of, well, at least near Earth orbit, it gets you to,
Right,
it gets you to outside of the atmosphere, and it gets
right.
you into a place where then the amount of fuel you need to go anywhere is considerably reduced.
Less.
Yes.
Yeah, because you don't have of gravity that you're
Right.
fighting against.
Right.
Yeah.
Not as much. You're kind of
Well, and people
outside
have
the gravity well.
talked about, of course, the moon being a jumping off point as well for similar reasons.
Yes, yes.
Um, so
And I
those things
believe
are
one of the plans that they're floating, or maybe have even decided on this point, I'm unsure, is like a kind of halfway point between the Earth and the Moon as kind of a staging area. And it's not a bad idea.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of these will, I think, ultimately either get tested or thrown out.
Yes,
But
yes,
my
exactly.
problem is because it's so hard for the human mind to wrap itself around the
Mhm.
vast distances
Yeah.
and the unknowns that
Yeah.
we would come upon. Like, we can see stars and
Yeah.
we can see planets and asteroids that reflect light,
Right.
but there's a lot of stuff out there that it's too small, to be picking up with a telescope, or, even
Yeah.
our Hubble, our amazing
Or
things that are
James
coming in
Webb's.
from like Hubble.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, these amazing telescopes that are producing these incredible images of deep space.
Yeah.
There's so much that we can't see,
Yeah.
even in those.
Yeah.
So it to get to anywhere, you've got to be coming close to, or at least a percentage of the speed of light to get
Yes.
anywhere within a reasonable amount of time.
Yes. Yes. That's true.
And you're going to bump into stuff that you couldn't see or you didn't see coming, because
Yes.
it's a field of moving objects. It's not even just stable objects, right? It's
Yes.
a
That's right.
this field of things that are moving around.
Yeah.
And so,
Especially as you start to approach the speed of light, you're going to be going really fast and you're going to start
right,
hitting things that are even small and it can do considerable damage to you.
right.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that anything with mass can't actually make it to the speed of light. And I could be wrong on
Right.
this. I need to,
No, I believe you're right.
it has
To
to be
the speed,
massless
exactly,
particles.
like a photon. You
Right,
can't get the speed of light, but we consider um, near light speed to kind of be like one of the goals that we're
right.
hoping to achieve at some point, right?
And hopefully
Um,
doable for the human body,
right.
maybe.
And this is just assuming that we don't go ahead and figure out how to go faster than light speed, right? If we can figure out how to
Yeah.
get faster than light speed, then maybe all these problems will just kind of go away, right? If we're
So,
warping, for example, have a little bubble
yes.
around our spaceship, and we're kind of pushing ourselves through space by some means other than propulsion, like
Right. Or we're
typical,
folding space, or
right,
we're doing something.
wormholes or whatever it
Right,
is, right?
right,
Then things might be completely different. But what we're currently kind of capable of doing is, well, there's oh goodness gracious, now I've forgotten the name of it, but there was an idea that NASA came up with, which was to explode a bunch of nuclear explosives behind kind of like a shield slash sail. And so when you explode these things, it's going to then create this propulsion. And if
right,
you explode a bunch of them in like a timed fashion, and you can approach the speed of light. And then as you get to where you're going, you have to explode them in the opposite side of the spaceship to kind of slow yourself down. And
right.
this is something that is probably doable. But then we have treaties as well, where we say we're not going to explode nuclear explosives in
In
space,
space.
right?
Mhm.
Just as kind of a way to prevent wars and whatnot.
Right.
And so it quickly was kind of lost favor in the scientific community because we just can't do it legally, right?
Right.
It's a possibility. It's a possibility. If
Yeah.
things really came push to shove and we had to get off this planet quick, fast, and in a hurry, we would probably do it, right?
Yeah.
We probably still
Right.
have that many explosives in
And
storage,
enough willpower.
right? And if we had to get off, we'd probably do it. But in current climate, it's probably not going to happen. We got to figure something else
Well,
out.
so here's the other thing. Uh,
Mm,
if we're looking for all of these planets that might be Earth-like, or in the
mm,
case of Mars, the idea that we could terraform it, right? That we
right?
could bring it up to livable conditions.
Yeah,
Well, if we can terraform Mars, we can keep our own planet
we
livable.
could terraform Earth, right? Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But
So,
But we know really well how to warm a place up because we're currently doing it. And basically, it's just burn a whole bunch of stuff and make a whole bunch of CO2 in the atmosphere, and it'll warm it up. We don't quite know how to cool something down, right? I mean, we have some ideas, and they sound terrible.
not life
Like,
sustaining anyway,
no,
right?
like some of the ideas are to knock the Earth out of its current orbit, a few degrees, and then some of the other ideas are like to put stuff in the atmosphere so that it blocks the sunlight. And these don't sound like really good ideas to me. I feel like there's a lot of possibility for these ideas to accidentally go terribly wrong.
Yeah.
And
Well, and with any human endeavor, that does occur.
yes, yes,
I
it
mean,
does.
we lose
Unintended
people to
consequences
exploration.
galore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Which is why I have concerns about the fact that we will ever get to interstellar distances.
Mhm.
Here's what I think, John, and so I'm gonna throw a little extra twist into this.
All right.
I don't know if we will physically go.
Mhm,
I
mhm,
think
mhm,
we
mhm.
may consciously go.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think we're gonna do, and it's not quite so different from what you're suggesting, which I believe is like we ascend to some sort of higher plane, perhaps, and then can
Or conscious
travel,
ability. Yeah.
right? I think we're gonna, first of all, we're gonna send drones. There's
Well,
no
yes.
loss of
Unmanned
human
makes more
life.
sense.
Yes,
Right.
yes. And it can just go for 1,000 years if it needs to. And just like Voyager, it can send back
Right.
information. We'll probably entangle some photons and or something and communicate with it in basically real time across
Right.
vast distances. And we'll get to see all kinds of amazing things. Though even before that, I think this is something that we will be able to do. With our current technology, of course, it's impossible, but we're progressing so quickly at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I was looking at a YouTube video today. It was talking about dinosaurs in particular and how the amount of time between Stegosaurus and Tyrannosaurus was greater than the amount of time between Tyrannosaurus and us.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So, and the amount of time that we've been industrial revolution from Stone Age, like the industrial revolution has been very, very recent
Yeah.
since the Stone
Yeah.
Age, right?
Yeah.
And the computer age, the technology age is even much, much shorter than that. And we've come so far. We're approaching general AI at this point.
Uh, yeah. It's been exponential.
Yeah, yeah, it is
Mhm.
exponential, and
Mhm.
it's just a matter of time. We're definitely going to go interstellar, I believe, and it'll probably start off with drones simply because it'll be cheaper, it'll be easier. But we're going to start mining asteroids soon. There are already companies that are investigating this, and they're going to start going out and, I mean, we can't just bring back all these minerals to Earth because the Earth will get heavier, and that's going to
Right.
start
Exactly.
causing all kinds of weird problems that people are not really thinking through. But we can use those minerals in space to build spaceships and start traveling around the solar system. And the solar system will very quickly become a very close neighborhood of planets, I think. Will it be in 100 years? Maybe not. It might be a couple 100 years, but it's going to happen, I think, relatively quickly.
Well, I can see us, standing on moons around Jupiter, right?
Right.
But not Jupiter itself.
Of course not. There's nowhere to
And I don't
stand.
even know how much of an impact the gravity of Jupiter might impact. I mean, these are just I'm sure somebody's thought about this, not me.
Yes,
But
I haven't really
how's the
thought about
gravity of
myself either.
Jupiter going to affect you while you're standing on the moon, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There
yeah.
might be consequences we don't recognize. So unmanned, sure, it's a lot
Yep.
easier to get equipment places.
Right. Right.
But if we're going to build stuff, is it going to be built by that equipment, or is it going to be built by human hands?
I think it's going to be built by the equipment. We're going to build as much as we can with robots instead of
Yeah.
human hands. Human hands are slow and weak compared to robots, and we're fragile in space terms. And so yes, we might have people on these planets. These moons as well. I think that gravity is a fairly weak force, right?
Well,
So
yes, as far as space and
yes,
that sort of thing is
yes,
concerned, but it can have a big impact
right.
if
But when you're standing
it's
on the
outside of
moon,
your.
when you're standing on the Earth's moon, you're not being sucked off the moon straight into the Earth, right? So the gravity
Right.
well of the Earth is somewhat limited. It's stronger as you get closer to the center, and it's weaker as you go away from
Right.
it. And so
Right.
even Jupiter and these things, this is why the Jupiter's moons don't just like fly into Jupiter. First, you have, there's the force of, the rotation and the,
Right.
you know,
Well, and they're
uh,
far enough off of that
right,
very large planet that they don't
right,
get pulled in. They've become
right.
stabilized.
Right. And they have their own gravity wells,
Mhm.
and we have gravity wells circling gravity wells. And so I think it's not going to be so impactful on whoever might be there. I think it'll be similar to how it is Earth and the moon. It'll be a low mass body, and so you might, be able to jump a little bit higher and these types of things, and might still have some problems with like your bone density and things like this. Um, as people have been predicting about living on Mars as well, right?
Right.
It's
It's
a lower
smaller.
mass planet, yes,
Mhm.
than the Earth. So people might be different if they grow up there than if they grow up here on Earth, right?
Right.
Probably smaller, or I don't know, maybe even taller, right?
Right.
If the bodies are continuing to grow as if they were adjusted to Earth, and yet the gravity were not pulling on them quite so strongly, people might be much taller. I don't know. I've seen lots of sci-fi shows that have postulated that people who grew up on Mars would be smaller because of the lack of gravity, but in fact, the opposite might be true.
Could
If
be.
Yeah,
We know that astronauts in space get at least temporarily taller
yes, right,
because there's not that pressure on the spine. And
right, right. The
like I
discs
have
are
shrunk.
yes.
At my age now, I've lost an inch.
Yes, yes. I think I'm approaching that myself. And certainly I slouch a lot more than I used to. We've been talking a lot about like why we should do it. And so why do people think that we shouldn't do it? Because it seems like to me it's a great thing to do. We should do it, I think. A non-professional perspective, like us,
Mhm.
it seems like a really cool, fun thing to do. Why don't we do it? So why do people think that they don't want to do this?
I think the people who say they oppose
Mm,
space travel, some of it's fear. Obviously, anytime people naysay it, it's typically got a basis in fear, but it
yeah,
also is that they're looking at other problems and
yeah,
other issues that we're
yeah,
facing and thinking, why is this problem not more important than that one?
yeah,
you know?
right.
So they're looking closer to home to solve all these issues that we currently have. And I have respect that. We
Yes.
have to have people thinking about all of the problems, right?
Yes, yes, I completely agree. I personally feel very close to the homeless situation. Like I think probably just because I fear homelessness myself. Like I don't want
Mm,
to lose my job and then have no way to pay for my apartment because I just live in apartments constantly. And
right,
so I could very easily lose my ability to have a home. And so
right,
when I see a homeless person, my heart goes out to them, right? And
right.
I try to help out when I can. And so yes, I completely understand these ideas that we need to take care of these people that we have
Yeah.
here with us now, right?
Mhm.
But I don't think that we have to, because we're not currently focusing exclusively on homelessness. If we were, it would be solved,
Right.
right? We're focusing on a lot of things at the same time. And why can't space travel be one of the things that we focus on at the same time? That's how I feel. We should
Yeah.
work on everything at the same time, not just.
Well, I'm the same. I'm with you
Mm,
on that, John. We agree completely because we have enough people in this world that we can subdivide all the work, all the problem
yes.
solving.
Yeah.
And so there are those who have a proclivity towards math and science and exploration. And those are our people that should
Yeah.
be focusing on those things. And we
That's right.
have people who their primary focus is compassion and problem solving on other scales. And that should be their thing,
Yeah.
right? I don't think we have to pick and choose because
Yeah.
there's what, almost 8 billion of us on this planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we
That's a
can
lot of
certainly,
hands that
that's a lot of
if we
hands.
if we start like focusing on really doing things other than being selfish and just buying
Right.
crap all the time, we can really get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah,
And
I think you're right.
yeah, I think that space exploration is not just we shouldn't do it because we have stuff that we have to do here first. We need to do that stuff probably first, yes. But that doesn't mean that we should ignore space exploration because space exploration is kind of a way to ensure that we continue to survive. As we see with the dinosaurs, a big rock from space comes and hits the Earth and everybody dies. That can
Right.
happen tomorrow.
But if we're able to get to Alpha Centauri or Proxima Centauri, can't
Yeah.
we push that asteroid out of the way at this point?
So that's assuming that we can already get to Proxima Centauri or
Well,
some
or
other
even
place.
before we can get to Proxima Centauri,
So
even
this
before
is
then, we're approaching that ability now
yes, we are
to
approaching that
push
ability
things
now.
out of the way.
Yes, and we've sent a couple of spacecraft towards asteroids to hit them,
Mhm.
just to kind of see what
Right.
would happen. And so
Right.
it's looking like we can probably do this, yes.
Hmm.
But at the same time, sometimes we have asteroids or meteorites or whatever that suddenly kind of creep up on us, and we're like, "Uh-oh, we didn't see that one coming until yesterday."
Well,
Right?
and again, that reason that I was talking about earlier, there are things if they're not reflecting enough light, and they're not emitting
Yes.
light,
Yeah.
it's a big sky to keep an eye on.
It is. It is.
It's a
And
lot to be paying attention to.
we have a lot of observatories. I think there are at least four observatories, it may be exactly four, that are kind of watching the sky at all the time to just to make sure that there's nothing big coming at us.
Right.
And not so long ago, I think it was maybe a month or two ago, something kind of came by and went really close by, and we didn't see it until at the last minute, simply because it kind of came at that gap between the two observatories that were facing
Right.
that area of the sky. And so it's possible that we have blind spots, and we might still get whacked by something
Yeah.
that we just didn't see coming.
Yeah.
Or if it's massive enough, like what, how do you pronounce Uamuamua? I believe it was the perhaps first intergalactic body to enter our solar system that we have
Oh,
been able to identify. It was a
track.
long,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a long kind of an asteroid type thing. And because of its trajectory and speed and things, like we figure it was just kind of it came into our solar system and it's going to leave our solar system and nothing was going to stop it,
Stop it.
basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we do
And
count
so if
on
something
Jupiter
like
for a
that
lot of
comes
that.
along,
Yeah.
yes. But if something sufficiently large decides that it's just going to go fast enough and enter our solar system, there may be nothing that we can do except get out
Right.
of the way.
Yeah. Now, luckily, Jupiter has cleaned up a lot of that stuff for us because it's got enough
Oh,
mass
yes.
that it grabs things coming in before it gets close enough to
Right.
us. But we
Right.
know it hasn't always happened because we have had big extinction events
Well,
on our
sometimes
planet.
Jupiter is on the other side of the solar system from us,
Right.
right?
Right. Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
thanks, Jupiter, you might catch it on the way out, but you didn't catch it on the way
Right.
in, and we're all still
Right.
dead.
As always, we don't necessarily come up with any defined conclusions, but it's interesting to talk about the possibilities. And for me, humans are
Yeah.
going to explore. It's in our nature,
Oh, yes.
and we'll
And
find
let me
ways.
just say,
And mhm,
before we go, there have been a lot of discoveries that we have made preparing for space travel that have gone on to help our everyday lives, right?
right,
So the microwave you have at home, I believe, is just another one of those examples of something that we have. It was like an experimental kind of an idea, something we might be able to use for space. And then we
mhm,
realized, oh, we can also radar, we can also cook food, we can also do all these
right,
different things, right?
right.
So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
who doesn't love Velcro?
right? So
Yeah.
there are lots of things that we can learn while preparing for space travel that will have benefits for us here now on Earth, right? Health, be able to live longer, avoid cancer, avoid radioactive issues if there were to be some type of nuclear war or meltdown of your neighborhood power supply or whatever,
Right.
So there are lots of things that we can also benefit from through exploring space.
We'll keep all of that in mind for our future we don't see coming yet. But I
Yes.
really do think there's a good chance that AI will
Mm.
be in space
Oh,
long
yes.
before human beings
I
are.
think you're right. I think you're right. And I think that's also another very interesting topic. I've considered this. I think our first contact with other species may be contact with their AI,
May
right?
well be.
And
Yeah.
their first contact with us may be with our AI. And who
That's a
knows?
great idea. Yeah.
Maybe we're going to have AIs interacting in space, saying hello to one another, and we're nowhere around. Maybe we'll be long gone, and our AI will still be flying around in space, and maybe someone else's AI is just flying around in space looking for people to talk to, and their controllers are long deceased.
That's because of the vast distances. That's entirely
Yeah,
possible.
it's
And
very
AI will be the
interesting.
next life form.
Yes, I think
It's
it
possible.
will. I think it will. I look
All
forward
right.
to
That said, John,
it.
thank you so much for a fascinating conversation. I'm very curious to see where things take us.
Yeah, me too.
If you enjoyed this content, please hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications.